violation of Section 187 of the Penal Code of Felony was committed by Melissa Huckabee, who at the time and place last aforesaid did willfully and unlawfully and intentionally, with malice aforethought, murder Sandra Cantu, a human being.
So disturbing. Melissa Huckabee, single mom, Sunday school teacher, and now accused murderer and rapist of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu. A reminder, tomorrow there will be a public memorial service for Sandra as the local community in Tracy, California tries to recover from this horrific crime. We will, of course, have special coverage right here on Issues. That is tomorrow. And right now, we are taking your calls, and boy, the phone lines are lighting up. Avis, Virginia, your question or thought, ma'am?
Thank you, Jane, for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
My question is, wonder if the pastor / grandfather knew about Melissa's past history, and if so, why in the world did the church body allow her to teach Sunday school?
Bob Moffat, what do you know?
Well, he's her grandfather, and he loves her very much. She was a Sunday school teacher. She was having problems maintaining employment, and he gave her a break. As far as her past history, it was some mental issues and also some petty theft, but nothing that would indicate that she was in any way a danger to children. So as far as, why would he give her a job? Well, they were related, and he loved her.
And, of course, she also had the bankruptcy, so she had money troubles. And, Bob, let me ask you, have you heard anything? We saw at the beginning of our broadcast this astounding allegation from KOVR regarding talk of, kids being drugged or a kid being drugged, kiddie porn allegations. We can't independently here at CNN confirm any of that. Have you heard anything on the ground there?
We've all heard the same scuttlebutt, for lack of a better word, and we have directed that question to the Tracy Police Department, and they have been able to confirm none of it, saying they have not been able to find any other victims or any inkling that it might actually be true. At this point, as far as we know, it is hearsay, it is rumor.
All right, Betty, Indiana, your question or thought?
Okay, I wanted to know.
Gee, what that reporter just said contradicted what the reporter said on Prime News. I believe it was in part 3 of Prime News Upload today. Talk about confusing the public.
Sandra could have walked in on Huckabee doing something to her daughter, and she had to kill her to keep her quiet.
Oh, wow. Well, I have no idea, but Steve Cardian, former criminal investigator, what are your thoughts about possible scenarios? Because authorities, according to KOVR, have said that this woman has given them 4 different explanations of what happened.
Yes, Jane, and that's correct to my understanding in talking with the law enforcement officials out on the West Coast. That is the case. But I also suspect and I believe that she also had some intimate details of that crime to persuade law enforcement to make an arrest at this time as well.
But, I mean, what do you make of the 4 different stories?
It's par for the course during an investigation when you have a deceptive criminal. They're going to make up stories to try and remove themselves as suspect. They're going to try and derail the investigation and your efforts in putting closure to the case.
Huckabee claimed that the day after Sandra went missing, she found a mysterious note in her mailbox. It read, "Cantu suitcase water." Huckabee has admitted that she owned a suitcase similar to the one in which little Sandra's body was found. Now, reports say Melissa Huckabee told cops that she wrote that very ghoulish note. We're also hearing, as I just mentioned, KOVR TV saying she gave police 4 different explanations of what happened to Sandra. We can't independently confirm that. Paul Callan, weigh in.
Well, Jane, the 4 different stories is entirely consistent with somebody who's mentally ill. And I think when you look at this woman, you're looking at somebody who's mentally ill. Now, that's very different from being legally insane. It's almost impossible to prove legal insanity in California because you have to prove that you didn't understand the nature and quality of the act and you didn't understand the difference between right and wrong. And a lot of people who are clinically insane don't pass that test. So in other words, it's very, very difficult to prove that in court. There's a difference between legal insanity and real insanity.
That the person may be crazy, but they're not stupid. That's what we call it.
Now, listen, Brenda, I have to ask you a very important question because police are saying that parents, if they have any suspicion or they feel that their children were exposed to this woman with inappropriate contact them. But, you don't want to create a false positive, as it were. You don't want to ask questions of impressionable kids who want to please and get the wrong answers. Remember, we had the McMartin preschool case where 360 kids, there were claims of abuse, and it turned out there were no convictions. It was a huge sort of false hysteria scandal. What do you tell parents in this situation?
You know, in this situation, any child who was victimized by this person would have shown some signs. They would have been reluctant to go to her Sunday school class. They would have shrunk back from her, shrunk back from the class. There would have been signs of discomfort, but at this stage in the game, parents are simply going to have to ask very direct questions. Was there ever a time when Ms. Huckabee touched you here, here, or here? And just show the child with the hands here, here, or here, and find out if there was any inappropriate touching.
And don't ask leading questions. J.D. Weintraub, what about interviewing the child? This woman has a 5-year-old child.
And we don't even know where the child is. I assume that the child's with the grandparents, but which also brings into play, where were her parents? Why is she living with her grandparents and not her immediate parents? I mean, what's going on there?
Well,
There's
no,
so
I mean,
much
the
we don't
father has
know.
been here, spoken to the media. The mother, I think, is with the 5-year-old somewhere else to get her away from the scene or on a pre-planned vacation.
The police and the prosecutors have interviewed the 5-year-old with therapists, and I'm sure that they, have isolated, the situation and interviewed her properly.
I want to thank my excellent panel. Obviously, we're going to